How's it going, guys? This is the Core 3 from fightinggamesonline.info, and I'm back with another first look. We got lucky on this one, taking a look at Final Fantasy Dissidia NT, and we were lucky enough to get the closed beta, and so I want to go ahead and just give my overall opinion about the game. We're just going to look over the history, talk about the gameplay, talk about the design, and just kind of give you my overall opinion of, how the closed beta went and what to expect from it. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. So I wanted to just give a quick history of Dissidia before leading up to NT. And basically it started off on the PSP, which is the PlayStation Portable. It was originally thought up by Tetsu Nomura, creator of Kingdom Hearts. He wanted it to be a spin-off of Kingdom Hearts, but felt uncomfortable with having Disney characters fighting each other, which ultimately led to them having a full Final Fantasy cast. They released two versions. The second title kind of added more characters and a little bit more game features. While I'm thinking about it, for those who are unfamiliar with Final Fantasy, it's hands down one of the most popular RPG series ever created. It had 15 titles within the franchise, with a few spin-offs in between. So ultimately, it did not get a home console version, and as a result, I personally did not get a chance to try it out. I'm not going to go on a rant, but it felt kind of messed up. But when you really think about it in the long run, it made sense at the time because it was just something new. It was something that they were trying out. And usually, portables are kind of those, it's the kind of experimental ground for a lot of titles before they kind of, hit the big time and they actually start pouring a lot of money into it. So it does make sense. Now, we didn't hear anything about the city at all until February of 2015 when they released a trailer showing off basically a new game. But nothing was really explained at the time until April when we learned that it would be an arcade game. We learned that it would be co-developed by Tecmo Koei's Team Ninja, the minds behind the popular Dead or Alive fighting game series, and that the arcade was based on PlayStation 4's hardware. So it was kind of a giveaway that it would be on the PlayStation 4 and it would be exclusive for the PlayStation 4. I mean, it just made sense. So the arcade would basically start with a few characters and they would periodically update, and now they're up to about 23 playable characters, with Jet also confirmed as an upcoming arcade character. And there's going to be another character announced probably after we put this up. So definitely look at our website to see what character was announced. Now, the console version that's coming to the PlayStation 4 was titled as Dissidia NT, and it was announced a few days before E3. We learned that, of course, it would feature 3 versus 3 online play, and that we'd be getting most of the characters, I guess, from the arcade version. Now, it's just important to note that they said the arcade versions will be getting the characters first, so they'll be exclusive to the arcade first, and then, of course, they'll update it to the PlayStation 4, I guess, periodically after that. So a month had passed, and then they basically announced at EVO Finals that they would be giving keys to everybody who attended there. Lucky for us, they also were opening a website for other people who are interested in possibly taking, being a part of the closed beta, and that's kind of how I got in myself. So let's get into the beta. So it ran for a week, and that's the longest I've seen a beta run, so far. Most betas only run for 3 days at the most. So the beta gave you 14 playable cast members to choose from. All of them were heroes of each Final Fantasy game. It was basically up to Final Fantasy 14. They had a practice mode, which was more like a CPU mode, and the CPU was pretty easy, kind of just to get you acclimated to the game. And your teammates were also AI. So that's just something to mention, that when you're playing, one player mode, that your teammates will become AI. Okay. Now, lucky for us, of course, they did have the online 3-player mode. And that's kind of where I was for the most part playing online. Let's talk about the overall design of Dissidia NT. And I have to say, without a doubt, it looks flawless. I mean, everything looks wonderful. It was nice to finally kind of see this game up close and personal. I've only really gotten a chance to see the game through video. All the minor details look amazing. The cloth texture looks amazing. everybody's hair is on point. Hair certainly became a big deal after 7, and they've just been kind of going with that ever since. It just made waiting for the game to come out on PS4 worth it. I don't think that it coming out on PS3 would have been as good. So definitely worth the wait. The in-game visual cues are pretty good. There's a line that basically helps you stay aware of incoming enemies, and that's kind of really helpful. Things can get very chaotic at times. The camera can certainly be a killer at times as well. You can end up in some odd areas where things get very hard to see. So, having things like that is very important in the game. Communication, not so great at the moment. It utilized the digital pad to communicate, and it's impossible to do that during intense battles. So I really do hope that they implement a voice communication system in the final version. So let's talk about the gameplay. And I basically put this in the fighting game category of arena style gameplay. I consider it kind of, if we're talking about arena style, it's basically like a mix between like third-person shooters and 3D style of fighting. I believe that the Gundam Versus series was the one that kind of made this style popular for fighting games. It's a lot more free roaming than your traditional fighting game. Movement definitely plays a bigger role, and with this game, you're moving both through the air and the ground, so that certainly gives the game a lot more excitement, in that vein. It certainly takes some getting used to. Even going over the tutorials, I had to do it more than once, and it still didn't quite give me everything. I didn't grasp everything even doing that. I still had to go back to just ingest everything about this game, and it wasn't really until like towards the end of the game's trial period that I really understood, everything that was going on. So this game seems to have what I call like universal gameplay, which means for the most part, every character's movesets are the same. Abilities do vary, but I see that, having universal gameplay, I see it as a good thing. As a fan of the series, you want to enjoy as many characters as possible, and it won't require you much time to learn and jump in with each character. So you just kind of have to learn, the nuance of each character rather than the actual controls. Some might see this as of course, if you're looking for something a little bit deeper, you might not like that, but to me, I don't have a problem with that. Now, each character kind of has a certain attack category. Category kind of determines the team role that they play, and certain characters kind of specialize more in zoning, and others are kind of close combat. In some cases, depending on the battle set that you pick, you might have kind of more a character kind of more balanced who has both ranged attacks and close-up attacks. So it just basically depends on sometimes how you customize that character. Seems like the beta right now just had just some presets. Only 2 sets were available, and I'm guessing that there's going to be more. And that you'll be able to kind of customize them yourself. Now, each character basically had one special ability that they could use per match after you chose your battle set. Some characters did have 2 that were available. So for instance, the character like Cloud would have his meteor rain move as one, and he had like this cross slash as the other, and you basically chose which one you want to use in battle. So I'm kind of hoping that they're going to have a lot more moves than this. My guess is that they do. Like I said, I've never played the first Dissidia, so I don't really have a clue as to how much of these special attacks that you got. Now, in addition to the special moves, you also get another thing called EX. And this essentially works like your potions. Some will help you regain HP, others will help you and your team. One of the ones that, of course, I remember from the original RPG was the Poison Naga. So, that was definitely cool to see. They can only be used one at a time. So when you activate one, you basically have to wait until that activation is over before you can use the second one. Of course, it wouldn't be the Final Fantasy without summons. They're probably the favorite of the series. So you would basically pick the summon before the match started. I believe there was a voting system when you played online with players. and it possibly picked random if no one could agree. It would provide power-ups in addition to assistance, and they certainly seem like life saviors in hectic situations. There were plenty of times where it looked like the match basically was going to go in anybody's favor, and if it was not for the summon, we'd have probably lost the match. So definitely summons are a big deal in this game. Any teammate can start a summon. The more players that join in on the summon, the faster it would go. Of course, you did have some opposition. You could get hit, while you're trying to do a summon. So, very challenging to use in the matches as well. So I guess you guys are, of course, wondering about the online experience. And I got to say that it was pretty good. Maybe the biggest negative thing about it was probably the long loading times. But that was kind of expected because, of course, it's 3-player matchmaking. They have to find 3 players. So that's not really something that you can help. There was nothing there in terms of signal strength. The game was not region locked. And I've learned that this is a good thing because it keeps the network from getting congested. I think the matchmaking system for the most part did a pretty good job of keeping you within the same rank as other players. Every once in a while a higher ranked player might just creep in every blue moon, but for the most part that was pretty good. As far as the online play, I would probably say that it was on and off. Most times it played well enough. Every once in a while you come into a huge latency, and with certain matches where it's just kind of not really playable. But for the most part, I was surprised at how well it kept up at times. With so much happening on the screen, you would just expect some sort of lag during these matches. But in some cases, it did pretty well when the connection was good. So, there are certain things that needs to improve. Hopefully the loading times will get better. I suspect that they will improve because there are, more players that are going to probably be on the game. Matchmaking certainly has to be on point to ensure a good experience. I feel like they're at a good spot. I really don't know what they plan to do as far as, showing latencies and stuff like that. So if they're not going to show the latencies, I definitely expect that this matchmaking to be as on point as it should be. So that's pretty much it for this first look at Final Fantasy Dissidia NT. Overall, the experience was really enjoyable. I had a lot of fun. Enjoyed listening to those tunes of the final boss music for all the characters. I'm happy to see that, characters like Cloud and Squall are back in action. Getting to play with Light for the first time was nice too. So I was definitely happy about that. This just seems to be like the tip of the iceberg at the moment. It seems like they're just mainly focused more on making sure that the online experience was good. And hopefully they met their goal with that. I really can't wait to dig more into the customizations, of course. And I really do hope that we do get an official practice mode as well for this game, because I really want to learn how to use the character to the best of my ability. Final Fantasy Dissidia NT will release next year at the beginning of the year on January 29th. I'm definitely marking my calendar for this one because it was really enjoyable. I had a good time with this one. I think if you're a fan of the series and you're as nostalgic about these characters that I am, that you're really going to want to have this game. Outside of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, this is definitely getting me really excited. There are 50 characters that were planned for this game. I think it can happen with the support that this game will probably get. So I'm really looking forward to being able to play with a lot of these cast members that I've missed for a very long time. So as luck would have it, we will have another first look pretty soon. The Gundam Versus is having an open beta at the moment. So I'm going to be taking a look at that. And so another first look is definitely on the way. Hopefully we can keep this ball rolling. There is still a lot of YouTube content that I have to get finished. So, keep an eye out and stay tuned.